So hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Have the Race Gone. My name is DirtenDK and I am here with the Smooth Boy Trouse 666 for round 8, race 1 of the Nukeshot Endurance Series, the NES here from Interlagos. And I think we are all excited to see how this pans out. It is, of course, a legendary track, known also in real life for hosting multi-class racing here. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamics we'll have going on today.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a cool track this because the straights aren't too long, so we don't suffer as much as we do on the longer straights, for us too at least. I was looking forward to this race for sure.
Certainly me as well. I was actually also having high expectations after having some practice with Joe. But we'll see how everything pans out once the replay is loaded, and we'll be good to go shortly. Of course, as per tradition, we will take our very Charlie Roscoe inspired grid walk, and we'll be with you for that right about now, basically, I guess. So in pole position we have the Wasps, the Vert Audis, with CJ on pole position right in front of teammate Joe of the Fire, the self-proclaimed witty professor, with the Porsche 919 of myself in third position, and indeed also my teammate the Smooth Boy in fourth, right behind there, with to make matters even, I was about to say worse, but the grids of teams, the rows of teams, yes, whatever you want to call it.
A very organized grid we had here, sorted out perfectly in teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Looks good on photos as well, so good job everyone there.
Because it's splurged in front of Armored Core there towards the bottom end of the LMP field, lining up 6 cars today. And then once again, something we've seen
unsurprisingly,
yeah. it's the Nilse. It's not so hard to be a Nilse man.
It's definitely not hard to be a Nilse man.
On pole position in front of Gugas, doing well. I was about to say in front of home support, but it is of course against in front of a lot of supporters that speak his language,
yeah,
at least. So
no language barriers there.
Strong performance there in qualifying from Gugas. Then Y-Bear in that Mercedes in third position in front of Ninja Karma, who's fourth. We have Off Apple in fifth position with the Audi R8 of Jim in sixth, and then Mika in that Subaru on in seventh position. I was just about to say Subaru.
Impossible!
Yes, exactly.
Subaru!
Oh. So with that said, we have the drivers getting off here onto the formation lap, and a short one compared to last week, where we had a very long one there. Kyoto Miyabi was a very long formation lap, and indeed the Tokyo Expressway.
Yeah, we've had some long tracks, some fast tracks the last little while, and some. Yeah, so it takes a while at 100 kph, or 80 in the GT3 class even.
Yeah, it's even worse when you're in the GTs and you feel like you're going so slowly. And I think a lot of the LMP cars might also be struggling with grip here as of cold tires, because the tires get quite cold here for some reason. As we're having a look here on Armored Core, joined the qualifying session very late and was only really able to put in a single or two laps before qualifying was over.
That's true, that's true. That leaves him a bit of an unknown, something I was thinking about before the race as well. We didn't really know his pace. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he does here in the beginning.
Very much so. We've certainly seen the pace of Armored Core over the last couple of rounds. Here, as we have a look with the GT field, it is of course championship leader Nilsemann, who's
not having any of that cold tires you're mentioning before. He's just warming up all the way down there.
He is certainly busy warming them tires up. Just gonna.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, actually, that's on me. So put on the race info. There it is. Much better.
Broadcasters here at Half the Race Gone constantly challenging themselves with new setups of who does what in the broadcasts, keeping it spicy, fresh. As we see the host, the organizer,
Mr. Off
the
Apple.
moderator on our stream as well.
Yeah, the stream moderator goes under many names that you'll see if you join our Discord as well. And here at the back end it is Jim and Mika. Now we have CJ and Joe beginning to line it up here.
Yeah, everyone lining up nicely.
Beautiful formation as it's getting very close to be go time for the LMPs.
You're panic warming your tires. I didn't do that. Maybe I should have.
I was having cold tires at the moment.
Start from Joe, from CJ though. Sorry.
CJ, fantastic start. Joe seems to go well, but CJ, oh, you went wide there. Seemed to get a punt, and CJ is all of a sudden at the back. So
big oversteer moment there from him. He got left on the left of the track.
So that
scary moment. I was off as well, so that was a bit of a squeeze between all three of us there, us and Armored Core.
Very much so, and that in turn leaves Joe up the fire in the lead. Let us see if we can catch the GT start, perhaps, as it is Nilsemann getting a very good run there. Cook is holding on to second now.
Ninja Karma's had a great run as well. He's on the outside here though, but he was up into P4.
And he pushing is up into P3. He's up into P3 there.
That was quite some archie-barchie
going on. Mind you, Ninja Karma, he started in 4th position, now up into 3rd in front of Wybear, suffering a little bit as a consequence of that small contact between himself and Ninja Karma. And later on in the field there are now Armored Core. We had a quick look there. Nilsemann getting very cleanly away now. Splurge, CJ, Armored Core, and yourself. A little bit detached perhaps from myself and the witty professor leading now. And mind you that the championship battle is very close between Joe and CJ. They're only separated by 2 points to 2. So extremely close there. Armored Core
immediately into the pit. He got some damage from that little tap he gave me as well. I'm running with damage as well, but I choose to stay out. Armored Core makes a wise decision, I think, to pit in here. Doesn't actually cost him too much. Clever thinking.
Yeah, and it'll just enable him to have clean air in front of him here early race, which is a luxury that many of the other racers here won't have. Here Nilsemann getting a little bit wide on the exit of the final corner. Coming onto that back straight, Goog is still within reach, and they're putting a little bit of time now into Ninja Karma. Off Apple up into 4th.
himself.
Off Apple into 4th position now.
P4 for him, that's looking good. He's in the slipstream of the Corvette, which is going to be flying down here, so that's perfect.
So gonna think Wybear might have made a mistake in that situation. And of course, one thing that we haven't gotten around to really mentioning is, of course, saying hello to our viewers. So hello to CJ, hello to Mr. United, who is, of course, in turn Armored Core himself, Off Apple, Mr. Nukeshot Motorsports, also nice to see Welsh, GT Welsh in the chat. So a very warm welcome to you all to the channel.
Joe of the Fire continuing to run nicely here. He's picked up the pace to what resembles a good race pace here, 119.8. That's a very nice pace to be setting once things have settled down.
Yeah, he just gets right into it, Joe of the Fire, and then he's off, and he just goes from there. He has a very nice advantage here early on. I myself getting put under a little bit of pressure.
Only mental, I think, at this point. You're still setting a good pace. You have a bit of a gap down to CJ, who's been struggling here in the beginning, but he got away from it. What can you say? A bit cheaply, which he will be thrilled about. Just trying to make up this gap here.
Oh, Splurge going a little bit sideways there on the entrance to that right-hander and through that twisty middle section. The Toyota can be very fast here, but it's also a twitchy car. Suffer a little bit.
Yeah, you need to be very dialed if you want to be fast in the release, especially through the harder accelerations in the lower gears. It can be quite scary. You see, he accidentally cuts it a bit much there, and he's probably looking for that perfect exit, which is, I imagine, it's going to be pretty hard to get coming up there, because it certainly isn't the Porsche.
Now in chat we have Ahmed Cole mentioning that the race in the LMPs was boring. Well, I think it was his race in the LMP that was just boring. I didn't have a boring race, at least all the way through here. Nilseman looking very cool, calm and collected indeed. He is first in class, Guga's second with Ninja Karma and off Apple, so still status quo.
Wybear is getting very close to Apple though. He's been setting quite the pace here for the last lap, and he's made up that gap. He's going to be looking to make a move. I probably think it's going to come down the straight, because that Merc really moves.
It might very well. So we have a car off the track, I think, and a car that has finished, I think, or disconnected, and that might be Splurge if I'm not completely mistaken.
Yeah.
In the Toyota, and that's a very early exit indeed for him. Now I have very close company of the Mad Greek, who is in turn Crazy John himself. He's getting very close, and this is a dangerous point for him to get that close, because once that Audi is in the slipstream, he is going to be charging up.
The diesel power of that Audi coming down the straights is just scary when you have it behind you. It's so fast. And you can see you're pushing hard now as well, trying to pick up the pace, and you've actually even lost a little bit of time doing that.
Yeah.
That's what it means when you know you have a car that fast behind you.
Exactly.
Second straight here, he's going to be looking to the inside.
CJ comes with the move, and he dips it in there.
Oh, you're looking to make the cut back though. Nice one. Oh, a bit of touch.
CJ getting a
too bad.
No damage indeed, just CJ getting a little squirmy there on that exit. Saw the opportunity.
Great move there, very nice.
I think I just pretty much just got determined to do that now, cutting up to pass the Audi R8 of Jim.
Horrible time for it as well.
Oh, it's just put in way too little steering input and go straight off there. That is a huge mistake, and managed to spin the car out of pure frustration.
That's some angry donuts we're seeing right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Some of the worst driving we've seen in the Pro Class this season, I think I can safely say, because it wasn't about any putting too much into it, it was just not steering enough, which is really...
It's one of those mental overload things. You get them once in a while, too much stuff is happening and your brain just can't process. Nice to see some Fs for yourself there in the chat.
Danish profanity was uttered under the race yesterday. Now CJ up into second position cleanly there, with not even a fight in the end.
Looking at the pace he was setting before getting up to you, and then the difference when he was battling, I think it shows that you would have had a very hard time trying to defend that for much longer, but that's still not the way you want to lose a position, that's for sure.
Would have been nice to see how long it would have been able to keep it alive, you know.
Of course.
The hope was alive, and then it died very quickly indeed. Nilseman still looking very strong there in the GTs.
The front of the AM GT3 field here has been unusually orderly for the first little while here. Wybear had a bit of an incident. He's gotten past Apple, which we missed, unfortunately.
Look at the camber on the rear of that Mercedes. I've never seen something that extreme.
Wow, that looks like a reverse drift car. It's supposed to only drift in reverse. What is that?
That looks insane. I feel Wybear didn't mention this.
We're going to instantly send out a reporter to investigate what is up with his suspension setup. Because that's very interesting. Hopefully we'll be able to follow up with more information.
Indeed, very much so.
Let's see how that's gonna work. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it pays off for him.
So Wybear is in 4th position there in turn. Nils is still leading now. There is a bit of traffic squabbling going on here as you...
picking the wrong time to get in the middle of 2 cars. I don't remember it looking as bad as it did there. I think it's just because of the hard braking actually, because it wasn't too bad. I keep saying the hard braking. I realize now that every time I say it, it's gonna put heartbreaking in the text. I should just say heavy braking. Because no one's heart should be broken that up.
So Wybear really closing up on Ninja Karma as well there. He's hunting down that Corvette for 3rd position. And Nils in turn. Let's look at the lap times between him and the Mercedes. Krug is also looking fast at the moment. Ninja Karma a little bit off the pace there as we see all of a sudden Wybear getting very, very, very close indeed. Let's see now, Wybear, if he gets the exit here, he will be in the slipstream of Ninja Karma.
Just has to deal with that impatient LMP car blasting its way through on its way to the pits.
Is it so important to get in there quickly?
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think it's not like it was a bad move, you know, as you need to get past and you got through pretty cleanly. But I think it was enough for Wybear to choose to hold off there. We didn't really have a chance at this.
Oh, as he goes a little bit wide there, coming out and then loses some time, and that in turn is going to put him a little bit off.
You have to wonder if the Corvette is still just a little bit faster down the straight, because he seemed like he was really pushing it, trying to catch the slipstream there. He had a bit of a gap coming out of the T1 complex, or what you can call it.
Now we have some pit stops also coming off. We had some people just coming out of the pits.
Up front, CJ's just caught up to Joe of the Fire.
Very much so. The two are now extremely close there.
So it's all back to a pretty level playing field between the 2 championship contenders. I think I'm going to call them. I can't remember the points of P3 at the moment, but these definitely are the guys looking like the main contenders now. And it's going to be all even here as we get closer to the pit window, I believe, for these LMP cars as well.
Indeed, CJ just running wide there, but manages to keep it on. Does have the speed, but also really just, you can see he's pushing to the absolute limit. And he likes being there on the limit. The Mad Greek, which is perhaps why he has earned himself that nickname, I guess. Anyway, Joe of the Fire in front is doing a fine job so far of holding off his teammate. And mind you also that on the Vert team, we know that no such thing exists, such as team orders there. Joe getting a little bit squibbly on the braking.
It's the first little mistake we see from him, and it's a very costly one. He doesn't quite catch it coming through the left-hander, and that really hurts his exit.
CJ cuts in, and he has to run down the inside of Joe, and he's
gonna be side by side between the 2 Wasps. No, it's not even gonna be that. He gets past cleanly. Joe just tucks in.
No, Joe's still in front.
Oh shit. Ooh.
Joe's still in front. CJ not getting through there. Not
Paint your mirrors or something, guys.
No, I don't think so. Do they even have mirrors?
They have like mirrors hidden in the side pods, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's like hidden in the side plates.
It's true.
Very close racing here, I think. At this point, Joe is starting to feel the heat a little bit. He's not really used to having someone this close to him coming through corners like these. And it's the Mad Greek. It's gonna be very stressful.
Yeah, but the witty professor is one of whatsoever. So rarely do we see him make mistakes.
I just saw the position change, so we're gonna have a look down here.
That is Ninja Karma going very wide. And then turn that must give the position to Y-Bear, and in turn it does. Y-Bear up into third position in class there.
Ninja Karma losing a lot of pace. Guga's gonna capitalize as well.
Guga's having had... Guga's of course having had a pit stop, I think, at this moment. Now coming up.
But it's very crucial coming out of the pits to get past cleanly as fast as possible, and he gets past immediately, which is perfect for him.
That track position there is crucial indeed for Gugas.
You see the GT3 field is starting to pit in now. Mika and the Subaru dives in as well. This is a bit of a troublesome stint he's had with varying lap times.
Very much so.
He'll be hoping to improve here coming out to the second stint. Let's see what the Wasps are doing. The Wasps.
As CJ goes majorly wide there, coming up towards the middle sector up the hill there. So that's gonna set him a lot back quite a lot. That's what I meant to say, of course.
A lot of scratches on the side of the car. He probably has damage as well. Seems to be trying to hold on to that car quite a bit as well.
Joe comfortably ahead after the incident there of CJ, and CJ giving himself a hard time indeed. He makes the job somewhat more difficult than perhaps it would need to be, of course. Oh, was that a cut of the pit entry there from Joe of the Fire? I think the stewards would have to have a look at that indeed. Here we see CJ not cutting across the lines and keeping it legal there.
You think?
Armored Core also is in the pits at this moment.
Those magic spinny tires that spin even though the car is...
And they spin backwards.
Yeah, it's impressive stuff. This LMP technology from Toyota.
So Joe of the Fire is out in first position, Armored Core, and CJ, how's it gonna be with these two? Armored Core out in second position, so a really strong stint there after his early stop.
Yeah, and a pretty good pit stop time because CJ doesn't come out until now. So CJ has quite a bit of time to make up here.
CJ must have lost quite a bit of time.
Look at the amount of scratching on the front. Scratching, obviously, the only way you can damage an LMP car. It hurts the internals, though. I think he probably had heavy damage. That looks like a heart.
Yeah, indeed. And if you also look at the lap time of
like
150.
Those are a lot of scratches. See the two Porsches getting very close here.
Indeed, closing up between the Smooth Boy and myself in fourth and fifth position.
In the least interesting position of the race, so we're just gonna
definitely so
together here, just hang out. Nilsman, as we know him, setting a very, very consistent pace. Not really giving anyone much of a chance to do much, but Gugas and Y-Bear are looking very pacey. They're battling now.
They very certainly are. It is Y-Bear now catching up to Gugas.
What's up, Steve?
And what's up, Stevie? Yeah. Very good evening to you as well, mate. Well, Apple saying that, well, there also is kind of having to figure out by looking at the lap times and the general, like when you're watching real racing. Yeah. So, and it also definitely gives a much cleaner viewing experience. And in situations where we need to see if somebody's tires are maybe completely dead or if someone does have damage, then we will not refrain from using it, but I don't think that it necessarily helps the visual quality whatever
It's
you
definitely
say.
nicer to look at without it, and sometimes it's a lot of information as well going on all the time. So you end up watching that instead of just watching the action.
Yeah. Also, some
And
of
also,
the
you need some suspense. If you know everything all the time, it becomes very predictable. At least if you know a lot about racing like this.
yeah,
It
that's true.
becomes more predictable, which I think we both kind of like leaving out, to be honest. The predictability of the whole thing.
Very much
It's
so.
supposed to be suspenseful.
We have the RLA Corvette of Nilseman now exiting the pit lane.
You see a very strict pit strategy from the RLA team, both of them pitting in at the same time, even though they've had a bit of a different go at it for this race.
So this at the moment leaves Wybear in the lead of the GT class, but I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can hold on to that. He does have quite an advantage.
There seems to be quite a bit of time there.
No, of course it's not Wybear, it's Guga's leading now. Those two still pretty much locked together, though just a little bit too far away from each other to really be fighting it out.
Gug is in one of the biggest race cars known to man outside of the giant that is DMA.
It was the biggest until they chose somehow to make something even
Just
bigger.
scaled it up by 50%.
This is why I call this car the small.
Basically the same.
This is the
is
small
a really
mate.
good car, but it would be better if it was like 25% bigger.
The small mate. Anyways, we have both Gugas and Wybear in for their respective pit stops this time around now. And hello to Giomas as well. Nice to see you in the chat. A very good evening to you. And of course, we are very much looking forward for the to the IGTL race on Friday.
Make sure you tune in for that one, guys, because it's gonna be a big one.
Oh, as we see Mika going off to the right there. That was a fantastic catch there. F's out for Mika, who is... Oh, and that looks like a big frustration.
Yeah.
Oh.
The four-wheel drive and rally pedigree not really helping the Subaru much
But I was...
on that instance.
I was just about to say... Oh,
quite a tight squeeze there.
That's Nilseman making his way through, I
The
think.
slowest Rosberg squeeze we've seen in NES, I believe.
There was not a lot of space, but he made full use of it, Nilseman, in that situation, and certainly made his way through their Subaru. Yeah, it is indeed fitting with an off-track STI.
Yeah.
And what I meant to say before is, of course, to tune in come Friday evening at 8:30 or half past 8. Of course, Central European time for the IGTL F1, the 1985 F1 race. Lots of turbo power and a lot of turbo lag is what the drivers are going to be contending with as they make their way around the reverse layout of the Dragon Trail Seaside track. So not only the very difficult 1980s Formula One cars, but in combination with the chicane.
Very difficult and also very scary track.
Yeah.
It's one of the more scary tracks.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things where it's like margins between success and death.
I think even with the top level field there, we're gonna see some death through that chicane.
Absolutely.
Anyways, enough about that for now, and back to the race here. Armored Core is looking strong at the moment.
Yeah, we've been focusing on him here because he's setting quite the pace, setting some of the best laps of the race and doing it very consistently as well. We have a bit of a bug, I believe, with the timing graphics, just squeezing everything out of that line there.
That was.
We were saying that Armored Core would be a bit of an unknown because he didn't have time to qualify and set a proper pace, and he's certainly proving that he had more pace than he was able to produce in the qualifying session, or whatever he had of the qualifying session.
Both himself and CJ running at exceptional pace here today. And it seems that both of them actually, as we see Armored Core with a four-wheel drift out of first turn there. CJ once again goes wide through turn one this time. Does seem to have a little bit of an unsteady rhythm, to say the least. Tonight he has a very fast pace, but also seems to be a little bit inconsistent there compared to his teammate Joe of the Fire, who, as he has been all
just
season,
doesn't look to have a crazy amount of grip compared to Joe, to be honest. I wonder if he has lower downforce because he looks so much on the edge of his grip coming through a lot of these corners. Well, not that one, it's uphill, but some of them. And he just seems to be that bit more error prone as well, which isn't always dependent on his driving style.
no, that's true. It's hard to say. Armored Core talking about he was able to do.
Should shut up about 117s. We don't want to hear about 117s.
No.
Ooh, once again, we see quite the Rosberg squeeze there from the Subaru of Mika.
Armored Core, I suggest you take your 117s to the IGTL.
Joe, with a great piece of information there, he's running +4 brake balance, possibly just to save the tires, and that will certainly come off as a bit more of a loose car for sure. And I think that's probably what we're seeing here.
Yeah, CJ, I would also just agree with Apple on that one, that CJ is the slide magi, or as I would maybe call him, the kamikaze king. But it's certainly he's.
So it's jokes in the live chat and nice passing moves between these two guys at the same time here on the broadcast. Great timing there, ladies and gentlemen. Nice little move getting done, getting back out to the outside of the corner before turn-in. That's just the way you want it. You didn't see it, so I can see you. Confused!
CJ getting wide there once more. And now with a bit of dirt on the tires, he has to watch out and take it easy. Let's have a look with the GTs. It's still Gugas in the lead in the BMW, in the Martini M6. Wybear as well, still in second, with Nilseman now in third position. Not really having had any problems or such. So interesting to see. But I would be surprised to see Nilseman remain at this pace. We've seen him be faster.
He's lost about 3, almost 4 seconds on the last lap. We didn't catch. He must have had some mistake there.
Yeah, I think so indeed. So down into third, we also see a bit of scratches on that Corvette.
Yeah, it certainly looks to maybe even have gotten some aero damage. There are scratches on it.
And Ninja Karma now.
Corvette without scratches, Ninja Karma, he's right behind his teammate. Well, not on track, but position-wise.
Indeed, and then it is Abel. He's in fifth position with Mika in sixth at the moment.
Ninja Karma actually, he was pretty close to his teammate after there was quite a bit of a gap there for the first little while. This is both the Porsches going past the organizer. This is always the most scary pass to do. If you hit him, you know that's going to be a penalty.
Yeah, that always happens, it seems, when off Apple is.
Take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Hashtag bros for life.
That is
running around together. It might not matter at all in the race what we're doing at the moment, but at least it looks nice.
It certainly does.
So bad.
So Joe of the Fire still in the lead, kind of doing his own thing. He's been doing that for quite a while now, just trying to run his consistent pace at the front of affairs. And right now it's actually not the most action-heavy race, and certainly not as action-heavy as I would have thought it to be.
No, I agree. I'm quite surprised, especially in the GT3s, because of how heavy the braking zones are right in the beginning of the race. Normally you'd see a bunch of passes, but you saw some chaos in the T1 complex, and then nothing really happened in then T3 and 4. So
seemed to just settle into its order, and now it's pretty much just done that, and the race has become a little bit spread out, and it seems to be more a race on strategy than some direct combat. Armored Core in second position still. His best lap so far is a 1:19 dead. There it goes a little wide on the exit of the final corner there, but manages to keep it and manages to hold the speed of the car.
Four-wheel drive, bro.
Four-wheel drive. Four-wheeler driver, indeed.
That's enough of the Japanese accent.
Yeah, very much.
Broadcast. As I try to get away from myself by switching focus on the camera there. Wybear he's back to his strong pace here. He set his best lap on the last one. Wyberg, who pitted on lap 13 and is still running a very good pace, so he's obviously consistent through a lot of the laps in the six. That's good to see.
We have myself in the pit lane this time around.
Gonna check out when you go in the pits because you were wearing the right race suit.
No, I was no, I'm still in the Blaupunkt from the M3, so certainly not there.
But it's the same colors.
It certainly is. Oh, Joe.
You keep saying, oh,
yeah, but I get scared every time because it looks like
pretty much the line.
It actually is. It just seems like I've never found out myself how wide you can actually go on that exit.
Yeah, because it's even though you kick up dust and there's grass, there's still grip out there, so it's not that scary to go out there.
Yeah, we also have Apple mentioning the fact that we didn't do any Japanese accents.
That's a very good point, Apple. We've been in Japan for so many races, but we never did it. And the second we get to Brazil, I just think it's because the Japanese people will recognize what a horrible attempt at a Japanese accent it is. Brazilian people probably won't notice as much.
I think it's correct. As it's still just Joe of the Fire. And his lead seems to be just around the 8 to 10 seconds. Still, PD, bring us that delta time in the replays, please. Would be nice to have. CJ in turn is still pretty close actually in third position. He's by no means out of contention yet. With yourself in fourth now after
definitely out of contention.
The two of us very much so out of contention here. And Gugas is in turn still leading in the GT class. He has had a brilliant race so far. It's been a long time since we've seen Gugas perform on the level that we know he can perform on. When he's on his best, we saw it at, I think it was Monza, where he was absolutely dominant in the LMP AM class.
Yeah. If I can just point your attention in the direction of everyone in the LMP field pitting at the same time, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here.
Joe exiting first on the soft
core had a bit of a shorter pit stop compared to CJ before. So I wonder, it doesn't look like he's going to make up much time on Joe of the Fire.
CJ had in more fuel on the last pit stop, so he would have been gaining a little bit of time this time around.
That strategy of carrying that more fuel definitely paying off for him here.
Yeah, we've seen him do that on several occasions, just putting in more fuel in one of those earlier pit stops, then managing to keep his pace with that extra fuel for that middle part of the race, and then being able to just take out a couple of seconds on his opponents on the pit stops. We've also actually seen him use that tactic for actually gaining track position.
Yeah, and that's a very, very good point and a very interesting strategy from him. And it's certainly working, and it's not something you see too often. I feel like it's counterintuitive. You have to carry more weight. You'd be much harder pressed with your tires and be harder pressed on pace, as you mentioned as well. But seems to work.
Indeed. Also, Joe noting that the Armored Core coming out of the pits on super soft. He was on racing softs before. Wyberg now in the lead of the GT class, and his pace is looking very consistent also at the moment. Ninja Karma is in, I guess, virtual second, with Gugas now in third position, now getting held up a little bit by traffic here. And Nilsman down into fourth position, but still these four cars not too far apart. It's not going to take a lot of accidents to mix up things completely. Then the Nukeshot BMW of off Apple, a bit away behind the rest of the LMP AM field. We've also had another disconnect, and this time it is the Subaru, the Rotterdam Subaru of Mika, that very much so has disconnected.
Yeah, the total amount of damage on that Subaru from those off-road stints seems to have been too much for him, and he had to quit the race.
As we're having a look here with off Apple, slightly there. Armored still looking strong on his pace, but had a little bit of a longer pit lap there. CJ with a 1:33.9 on the in lap. Very short indeed, and a 1:18.8 here. So that
Big
indeed
oof.
is a very, very
lap of
fast.
the race, trying to catch up to Armored here. He's gonna be doing just that but not by much, because Armored has set his own personal fastest lap as well.
So CJ just gaining a 10th there. Very, very close in the race for the podium indeed. Right now, I think Joe of the Fire will be losing time a little bit, and certainly he is losing time. He's lost over a second here on the last lap. So for Joe of the Fire, it's all about that consistency, and then just hoping that the others will not be able to just keep on that pace lap after lap after lap. And mind you, it has worked pretty well for him so far this season, as he's very much still in championship contention with the Mad Greek himself.
Of Apple mentioning in the chat that his race was boring from here on and that we should ignore him, so obviously we're going to focus on him for a little while. Look at that turning ability. Look at that forward momentum. Listen to the engine. And we're good.
Very much Joe of the Fire. It's going to be interesting to see, if we mentioned before, now he's put in a 1:19.6 as well on his last lap. So just trying to limit the losses down to Armored Core, who's in turn
once again meeting traffic in an unfortunate position there as well. Not what he was looking for. At least it looks like he's gonna get past the next few cars in the ideal position. Spooling up that diesel.
CJ in that other Audi now. Armored Core getting safely past.
Getting past it at an ideal point and flashing as a way of saying thank you. The boost, the suck from that car obviously helped him. He set new fastest lap 1:18.6.
He's just having the constant flashing, the funky flashing on. Once
the funky flashing.
it's the funky flashing from
Not a
Armored Core.
fan of the funky flashing. CJ.
The lap times have really dropped down for those two in second and third. Both Armored Core and CJ putting in stunning laps right at the moment. They are really flying, and they're doing their utmost to challenge Joe of the Fire. Just see those last 5 laps has been quite a bit faster for both CJ and Armored Core than they have for Joe of the Fire. And at this pace,
consistency is the name of the game for Joe here, and that's the way he races, and that should be the best strategy now, because if he starts pushing too hard, that's when you get mistakes, and that's way more costly than running half a second slower.
that's true. That's true indeed. As we have, it's still Bear leading the GTs, so he must have actually pulled out some kind of move over the course of a pit stop, just keeping his pace consistent, though it has been a very long time since he was in. Will he be able to stay in front of Gugas, who seemed to have a pit stop, if I'm not completely mistaken, there on lap 20? It just seems like a big overcut there from Bear at the moment. Seems to be able to conserve those tires super well. Ninja Karma now up into third position with teammate Nilseman not too far behind. So we might see a battle between those two Corvettes as well.
I think we will very shortly. Quite a pace difference. I wonder if Ninja's on the end of his stint, I think he is suffering from worn tires quite a bit. Because you see he was running 36s for the last few laps, and Nilsman's having none of that.
Nilsen was in on lap 17, and same can't really be said for Ninjaman, so you you would have to expect that Ninja Karma had some kind of damage there, or Ninjaman, of course. Now Armored Core, and it was just Armored Core. I thought it was CJ as well, but Armored Core with the strange tire spin.
Mandela.
Nelson Mandela.
That's one of the best chat jokes I've had.
And Armored Core, please keep the spoilers to yourself and shut up. And you know your messages is going to be deleted, but it's still going to ruin everybody else's experience of what's going on if you keep... I don't know. It's okay, but please don't. Anyways, coming out of the pits now in third position, of course. It'll be interesting to see how it stands when CJ and Joe get their respectful pit stops over with. CJ on a blistering pace over this stint. Can I just say that? That is very consistent, and it's very fast with that level of consistency indeed.
Yeah, very, very impressive stuff.
Joe of the Fire, as you mentioned before, just trying to keep his consistency, but we also see CJ is definitely closing up.
Yes, and worryingly, CJ's even picking up pace across the laps instead of dropping off as Joe will be hoping. So perhaps that glimmer of hope he has by being consistent is going to be weakened a bit when he sees the gap just continuing to come down. As we see the first little sign of slowing down by CJ. Quite understandable after this many laps.
But not really though, because it's just a tenth or two off the best couple of laps he's put in. It is even very, very consistent from CJ here. Impressive stuff.
Oh. Does it again?
Does it again with the best first sector so far here. The Mad Greek is certainly on a roll. Let's go on board with the R8 TDI hybrid. Flying up through that sector there. Just manages to catch the apex. Gets a little slide on there, but manages also to keep the speed. This is the style of CJ as we have come to know it. And let's see if the lap is still up as we come down through the end of Sector 2. It is certainly not, but it's close. And it's close enough to still be a very fast lap indeed. Certainly quicker probably than what...
Let's also have a look in the GT3 field what the gap is like between Ninja Karma and Nilsman, because Nilsman just had his, what I presume to be his last pit stop.
Indeed, and here we have Gugas now, Wirebear, Ninja Karma, and then Nilsman just coming out. Now just behind his teammate once more.
Ninja Karma making a great save there. I don't know if you noticed that. I think he stuck his grass on the tires.
He definitely looked like that, and a very, very great catch indeed.
You need lightning reactions to catch that, even in the Corvette, which is one of the more savable of the GT3 cars. Even in that, you need to be so fast.
So Gugas now leading Wirebear. As there's a little bit of traffic coming through for the Indonesian.
With that Wirebear was getting a little bit of zook there towards the end.
And Gugas now in the pits, so let us see how they stand once the Portuguese comes out. He's on his way here, I think.
Far ahead, Wirebear.
Wirebear is indeed far ahead this time around. So Wirebear now back into the GT lead in front of Gugas, who's still exiting the pit, just coming out there. And he in turn has a very comfortable margin down to Ninja Karma and Nilsman.
Off Apple just getting lapped there, he would want me not to mention, so I'm going to.
Now let's see the gap between Joe and CJ. We've been away from this battle just for a couple of moments. Mind you also that CJ did actually pull off... no, he hasn't even pitted in yet. He hasn't even pitted in yet.
Going.
Of course it was... Oh, as he gets a big slide on there. We saw Armored Core pick up a pair of Super Softs. And that might be the reason that he had to pit so soon.
Yeah. Yeah, he did switch to super softs.
Oh, CJ runs very, very wide there indeed. We'll have to have a look at whether he does that too much. Maybe a little bit of contact there.
I think he just held off before the contact happened.
Yeah. And
definitely not a guy you expect to be waiting for GT3 cars through these corners, is CJ, and especially not with the stint he's had so far. He's definitely just looking to get past as quickly as possible, and that was once more on the limit all the way through there.
Because mind you also that he knows now that Joe of the Fire is pretty much right ahead of him. I mean...
Unfortunate for CJ. I want to see how much time he lost through that.
He had some
incident through the...
His last lap, 1:21.666. Was that a sign?
Yeah, unfortunate correlation between the numbers in my name and his time there. I wouldn't wish that on him. That was unfortunate after a great stint to lose more than 2 seconds.
Yeah, what he's actually made up.
Catching the cars in an unfortunate position. Because I think Joe probably had a better go of it. We didn't see, but judging on track position, I'd guess so. So the challenge now for CJ is getting back into that groove, getting back into that pace he was having. As you see, I do the high-tech backward spins of the tires as well. I didn't even know my car did that.
It's only here in Brazil.
Fancy.
It's a Brazil thing.
It's a Brazil thing.
It's some samba stuff.
Yeah, it's some samba inspired.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So Joe of the Fire still leading CJ and Armored Core. Armored Core a little bit away behind now in third position. He had a pit stop, of course, on lap 29. And he might have to have one more now as Joe of the Fire and CJ are both in here on the same lap.
And CJ has way more fuel.
CJ has a lot more fuel, so that will really mean that he might be able to shorten the...
Oh, look at that!
Incredible shortening of that distance. Now the race is really coming together, and CJ will have just about 12 minutes to get the pass done on Joe of the Fire, who is, well, I would guess, just about a second ahead.
Armored Core with the undercut is comfortably into P1 for now.
But it remains to be seen whether Armored Core will actually be able to keep this going all the way to the line. It'll be a long stint for him to do. And it's not given that he'll actually be able to keep his pace up. He doesn't have that much of a gap, and if he has to pit in...
It does appear to be slowing somewhat. You can see, obviously, he has to get used to the tires, so the first lap is a bit different, but you already see the pace consistently drop. There's still 13 minutes to go here. Something like that.
It's more something like 11 and a half minutes.
I was just thinking with whatever remains of the lap. It's a short track, this one, but still.
It's a very short track indeed. CJ just looking to get things done and over with now. Bear has gotten in front of Gugas, and it does look to be by something that could be a decisive margin if we've seen the last pit stops of those guys now. Nilseman is back up into third position with Apple up into fourth, and that means we've had a disconnect also from the Ninja Man himself. I was just about to say Ninja Karma has also disconnected, so a big number of disconnects also here tonight.
Yeah,
which
always a big shame to see, a lot of disconnects. It does ruin the value for some of the other racers sometimes.
A little bit.
The position they were fighting for suddenly becoming way less important because the guys who are having a poor race disconnect.
Yeah. So what we're seeing now, Joe of the Fire on the Super Softs. I would believe, of course, CJ as well on Super Softs. Joe of the Fire really also having picked up the pace now, getting into the 1:18s as well. So this is in turn gonna make it really interesting for the end of the race here, because the pace seems to be leveling out here as Joe just catches off Apple at a very unlucky time there. Oh, CJ goes around an incredible squeeze on the outside there as Apple caught some grass or dirt underneath his tires and got very squibbly on the exit. maybe a little too interesting for the Greek coming through there. Next up is Wybear getting lapped. And it's Joe getting through cleanly there. CJ maybe losing a little bit of speed, having to go the long way around. It seems like CJ has lost a little bit of ground. But mind you, it's still Armored Core leading here as we are into the last 10 minutes of racing. And it will come down to whether Armored Core needs to pit or not. And I think if I'd been in Armored Core's shoes at the time he made that pit stop, I probably would have gone for the long stint and seeing if you could hold out, because you never know what happens with traffic and everything. But we might also see a Toyota on some very dead tires just having to pit, and in turn he might also just need more fuel for that. Joe, CJ, still a little bit of distance between. And in turn, of course, it's still Wybear, Gugas, and Nilseman in the GT top 3. And both your hosts, both yours truly, is filling out the LMP class.
Inconsequentially in 4th and 5th.
That seems to be our thing this season, very much so. Whether you or whether we like it or not, it's probably more a case of.
Yeah, not a strong showing for the Half the Race Gone crew here at the LMP races, but at least we have a nice looking car. That sounds nice. I don't know. Yeah, it's not been too successful. A very competitive field we're against here.
Yeah, that's actually quite the level here in the pro field. Mind you that the AM field level has also really picked up during this season, and both Wybear and Nilseman putting in some very strong performances. Also with Jim and Snip, who's not actually racing anymore in the series, I think. Joe with a very nice time for an ad break. Cue the elevator music. Nilseman, something we've not really used to seeing is him in 3rd position and not being dominant in general.
He's had some bad luck and he's setting very nice lap times, but as we were seeing in the beginning of the race, he wasn't just taking off either, he was staying in front.
That's true, and he seemed to lose time maybe on the pit round initially. Also, it seemed that long fuel stop that he had to fuel up the car completely. Yeah, he seems to do that, and I just don't. I mean, I must honestly admit that I don't really understand why.
No, I agree.
But there might be some sense to it that we haven't figured out yet.
Apple continuing to run at the back here. Let's just dwell on him for a second because it will frustrate.
And to those of you also reading the chat, you might notice that we've had a fair share of British insurance-themed comments in the ads section, which also really seems to be a thing in Great Britain. I noticed this these times I was visiting the UK, that there were a lot of insurance advertisements on TV, so it's a very good pickup there from... brilliant stuff. Anyways, we are really entering the final moments of the race, and it's still Armored Core leading. Joe of the Fire in 2nd position. It's really closing up here towards the end with CJ in 3rd, but it's anyone's race, and it seems like what we've had is just not to put down our own broadcast or anything, but to be honest, it really seems like what we had was some interesting opening laps, then a long tactical battle through most of the race, and it's all just been leading up to these last 5 minutes where it's all gonna be coming down together, and the excitement is really building up here, because I don't remember when we had a 3-way scrap for the win here as one of the Corvettes go very wide there.
I think he was just recognizing what was passing him, and he knew that it was probably wise to just get out of the way.
When you see that leading LMP battle coming up and there's 3 cars so close, you know that's a very scary sight for a GT car indeed. Ahmed Kor still holding on, but his lap time's now getting into the 120s, so they certainly has dropped indeed. And Joe of the Fire is picking him up by almost a second a lap, and CJ in turn is also picking up Joe and just put in the fastest lap of the race with a 1:18.5. So it's really anyone's game. It's anyone's guess as to how this one plays out at the moment. I really dare not to.
It's so hard to call right now. It's impossible to know which way this is gonna go, which strategy the racers are gonna pick. Is CJ gonna go for the pass immediately and possibly slow both of them down?
We're just gonna go on board with CJ for a moment there. As also Alpha Apple just goes wild. We're just gonna follow the battle in front from the car behind as we just see to which degree that Ahmed Kor lacks the grip. Now Joe of the Fire sends it up the inside, and he gets it done very efficiently there.
And Ahmed Kor not able to really gain anything under acceleration due to those worn tires.
Yeah, and CJ is gonna put himself in a position to make the pass very swiftly as well, and I think he's gonna get it done through. Yeah, and so in turn from first to third in a couple of corners there. Heartbreak there for Ahmed Kor, who really looked like he was gonna be able to pull off some kind of surprise move there with a very long last stint, but in turn it just isn't working out for him in the Toyota.
Bravely fought, and he held on nicely, but in the end it just wasn't enough to hold off these two buzzing wasps.
The two buzzing wasps.
And the story is now gonna be, how is this gonna develop? We know CJ is probably the faster of the two, but Joe is a smart racer, and he's able to defend very well. This is gonna be boring, as Ahmed Kor says.
Ahmed Kor, this is gonna be extremely.
This is gonna be super boring, according
super boring.
to Ahmed Kor.
Especially the end of the race is gonna be so boring. So the flying wasps here as they pass Gugas. Oh, Gugas gets a little wide on the entrance. I think Ahmed Kor just put himself up the inside.
Closing that gap through those corners there, and he's right up on the tailgate of Joe of the Fire now.
CJ getting very close there indeed. It has to be said. Joe of the Fire seemingly getting the exit upon the creek just for now, but he's very much within the slipstream. But Joe doing a good job of not really letting the Greek come into a position where you can get his car through, but now Joe really has to go defensive, and that probably means just holding the inside line, seeing
doesn't go defensive
doesn't really go defensive at all. He just takes a very early entrance there.
Yeah, the gap wasn't quite closing quickly enough for CJ to do anything, and I think Joe recognized that early on and just picked the fastest line, and when he does that in that manner, there really isn't much CJ can do about it.
So Joe of the Fire still holding on, and I think we are on the penultimate lap of racing. We most certainly are, because we've got just over a minute of racing left. So they're going to complete this lap, and then that's going to be one more lap as they cross the line. So certainly still time for CJ to make his move, but he got to be smart here. He really has to line it up. He has to find some kind of chink in the armor of Joe of the Fire at the moment, and it's not really seeming like he's able to, at least for the time being.
Did get a strong exit there. Trying to make it up once more, but the gap is a bit bigger. The slipstream is a bit less powerful out there.
As they're coming up to lap Y-Bear now, you see Joe of the Fire flashing his lights to make sure that they just get a clean, safe run there, Joe. And it's very gentlemanly there. Y-Bear just gets completely out of the way for the lead LMP battle there as Joe goes wide. Joe goes wide, and he goes very wide indeed, and that in turn is the mistake that's gonna give it. Just hand it to CJ on the final lap. Oh, Joe of the Fire is gonna be kicking himself. He is gonna be furious there. Just choose the baddest, the worst possible time to make a mistake that wasn't even that big, but making it when you're just in front of CJ, who's been looking like he had the pace advantage all race. But Joe just having the consistency Now Nilseman having crossed the line to win the GT class here. No, I'm sorry, not.
That shows how used you are.
Yeah.
You are to Nilseman winning. He's finished. He must have won.
So in turn, I also win the LMP class at the moment.
Congratulations to DirtenDK.
Yeah.
On 4th position.
Yeah, Nilseman, of course. Of course, I'm correcting myself to the fact that Nilseman, of course, finished 3rd in class.
And Joe of the Fire with just the tiniest of mistakes, and that's enough to lose it.
And that is in turn enough to lose it and send it in the direction of the Mad Greek. CJ, who wins it in front of Joe of the Fire and Armored Core, with myself and Trials in 4th and 5th. Y-Bear takes the victory in the GT class with a very, very strong display as well. Gugas there is gonna come home for 2nd. Also a very nice race from Gugas. Much stronger than we've seen him over the last couple of races where he's been participating. So a very nice race there as well. Nilseman, of course, as mentioned before.
And Offable got 9th. Offable was last in this race. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that.
Yeah, and he was 4th in class. So that's pretty much...
No, he was last in class.
But so were you last in class.
So?
Yeah. So anyway, that concludes the race. And I think for the 2nd consecutive week, it was kind of a... it was not that it was... Okay, say that it was maybe a little bit boring, at least for some of the time.
I can understand why people would think it was boring because of the middle stints. They were very undramatic. There was a lot of gaps. We saw some different strategies which create gaps as well.
Yeah.
People were good at traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty undramatic for the middle stints, but yeah, and also actually quite undramatic for the start there. We saw a bit of panic through the T1 complex for both classes, and then that seemed to sort things out a little bit.
Yeah, and then we had my facepalm moment on lap 5, 6, whatever that was.
Yeah, we didn't catch any of mine, but trust me, I had several.
As you can hear, the Half the Race Gone team is just racing strongly.
Yeah,
but doing so well.
A great finish between the 2 championship contenders in pro class, though, being that close by the end and it being called not by any massive difference or big mistake, just a tiny little going wide, and then the pace difference we'd been seeing.
And I love
it's late in a stint for both cars as well.
Yeah.
And I think running a more defensive, a more conservative brake balance will really help you out there towards the end.
And of course, one thing that's of course true is that, as Joe also notices here, that all the DNFs also make for the greater gaps in the classes that we've seen here.
Yes, maybe it's something we should say more clearly. Please don't disconnect because you have a bad race. This goes for any racing game, any racing experience. Don't quit because you're not doing well.
No, look at us. We don't quit.
Going.
We never go.
Look at me and Apple. No, actually, look at Apple.
But anyways, a very big congratulations to our winners today, to CJ and also to Y-Bear in the GT class. CJ with a fantastic race. He was 3rd with 5 minutes remaining, and then just managed to make that 1st within those last couple of laps. Yeah. That was certainly great racing. Armored Core made it look really interesting, but in the end couldn't make those tires last. And Joe of the Fire just made that one critical mistake at a very bad time, which cost him the race victory, basically.
Yes, very unfortunate. He tried to hold on with that consistency, and he did it for everything but the last half lap, slightly more than half a lap. Very unfortunate the last lap. Yeah. Very unfortunate there, but some great racing we were seeing. Nonetheless.
Nonetheless, indeed. Nonetheless. So that concludes round 8. Race 1 of the Nukeshot Endurance Series. It's been a great pleasure having you all along for this broadcast. And of course, we'll be back come next Monday with more Nukeshot Endurance Series with the reverse stint race, as we will have the AM drivers in the LMP cars and the Pro Field in the GT cars. Of course, though, I need to mention that you will all have to tune in come this Friday for the IGTL 1985 F1 Grand Prix from the reverse.
Do not miss. It's gonna be the strongest field we've ever broadcast.
Yeah.
I can say that much. And if you've seen our previous IGTL broadcast, you know we've broadcasted a very strong field.
We had a very strong field last time out. The field is gonna be
better, you guys.
It's gonna be even stronger.
Even better. So make sure you tune in. Cancel your party plans. Can't call your families and say you'll be home later for Christmas.
And then mind you that we will also be back come Saturday actually with the final round of the TSR Multi-Class Super GT Championship, which is also going to be really interesting. So we'll catch you at those at those pre-arranged times and dates. Synchronized watches. I'll meet you at location Alpha. And until then, my name is DirtenDK.
I'm Trial66
and 6.
Vote for Apple.
Vote Apple.
Vote Apple in driver of the day, y'all.
Apple for purse.
Because he kept going.
Yeah.
But as Joe was mentioning, he keeps going because he needs the replay.
Or maybe he said that to me. I don't know.
Who knows?
It could be. Anyway, it's been a pleasure having you all along today. Thank you so much for joining in to the stream.
See you all on Friday.
See you all very much on Friday. And until then, take care and have fun. And
stay safe. And
bye-bye. No, seriously, just bye-bye.